Anzu Robotics Q&A with CEO Randall Warnas. Got that coming up next. Bill the Drone Reviewer here. If you like the content of this video or anything on my channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future content. With that, let's begin. The other night, I hosted Rotor Talk Live and was joined by Mr. Ron Braun. We spent the evening in an in-depth Q&A session with Randall Warnas, CEO of Anzu Robotics. Find out all about Anzu, their drones, what the future holds, Randall's thoughts about the Countering CCP Drone Act, and much more. So without any further ado, let's roll that clip in its entirety. Very special guest, Randall Warnas, CEO, Anzu Robotics. Randall, how are you this evening?
I am doing fantastic, and thanks for having me on. I don't know if you caught this, but I had mono for the past 5 weeks, and so I wasn't sure what was wrong with me, but I'm finally on the upswing from all of that, and I feel like I have been reborn, really.
Well, I can tell you I've been there, done that as well with that, and that is not a picnic you wanna go to ever, but,
Correct.
really glad to hear that you're on the other side. Randall really kinda needs no introduction, but, Randall's one of my drone heroes, okay? And I think he's probably, for a lot of us, he's one of our heroes. Randall, if you could just go over briefly your background, how you got started, and where you're at today, that would be fantastic.
Sure. So yesterday marked my 10th anniversary in the drone space. On June 17th, 2014, myself and two partners started what was called Drones Plus, which was the first brick and mortar drone store in the world, located in Las Vegas, Nevada. And then from there, we opened up 15 locations around North America. Two of them are in Canada, but we covered basically from Honolulu to Orlando, selling drones face to face in a retail environment. And this is again 2014, so this is at the beginning of the Phantom 2. So it was Phantom 1, FC40, Phantom 2, Vision Plus just had come out. So it was pretty early times, and being able to interact face to face with so many early adopters of drone technology, when at this consumer grade, not RC hobbyists building their own, but when DJI put out something that was already complete and ready to fly, I learned a lot, and there were a lot of requests for things to move from a toy or a consumer product into the workplace as a tool. And so in October of 2015, DJI pulled me away from that endeavor. And the purpose of that was to start a chain of DJI stores. But when I arrived in Shenzhen in November of 2015, they were like, no, we don't want to do retail stores right now. But we have this relationship with FLIR, and we're releasing a product for the Inspire One, which was the ZenMuse XT, but we don't really know how that fits. So I created, along with two colleagues in China, DJI Enterprise back in December of 2015. Set up an entire new distribution network of enterprise dealers that were used to selling, implements to farmers or surveyors, mappers, police departments, fire departments, etc. I was at DJI for about a year and a half setting up enterprise, and then FLIR reached out and wanted me to run their commercial drone business globally. So I went to FLIR, and really through the combination of those two helped pioneer the concept of aerial thermal imaging in a democratic way, in an easily accessible way. And now where you see commercial drones, pretty much they all have thermal imagery on them. Back in 2015, 2016, it was like the very basics of what thermal imaging was, outside of those that were in the police force and maybe some in the fire space. But I think that being a part of educating folks from kind of the ground up on how this technology could be truly life altering as well as career altering was really gratifying for me. I probably traveled to 30 to 40 countries while at FLIR, being able to evangelize drone technology around the world. I've spoken in probably 40 to 50 countries in the world on drone technology. So I really planted my roots over that period of time. And then there was this opportunity that came up when I left FLIR to become the CEO of Autel Robotics. It's kind of an interesting story how that all went down, but I think that it's something I'm extremely grateful for. Actually, behind me up here is the Drone Life article when I was announced as CEO. It wasn't like I expected myself to be at that level at that juncture in my career. But being at the time, I think I was 34 and the CEO of the second largest drone company, I thought there was a ton of potential for to be basically a company that drone users could wrap their arms around, that could feel understood and listened to, and kind of build a drone company together. But my stay there was a short 9 weeks due to some differences between myself and the ownership of Autel. But again, like that's all water under the bridge now. I'm really grateful that that's how, you know, I learned a lot. I think I matured a lot. I went through some pretty dark and sad times after that all went down, and it wasn't really until the birth of Anzu, or at least as we got close to launching, that I felt kind of a revitalization of my purpose in the drone space. Because even though I've worked for now 6 manufacturers, I think that I really wanted to put my DNA on what I'm doing and be able to stand by not only the quality of the technology, but also be able to act as I want to act towards customers, which is being responsive, being kind of in the mix with those that are using the technology, not shy away from certain things. And there's just not a lot of manufacturers that promote that, whether they're worried about what could be said for shareholders, or whether they have differences in communication styles, whether they're European manufacturers or Chinese manufacturers. You know, Anzu was born now 9 weeks ago tomorrow, and it's been a really exciting journey thus far.
So I gotta ask this question. It's been, how did you come up with the name Anzu? That's been on my mind for a while.
Sure. So myself and my partners that started this were sitting down just kind of brainstorming things, and I think that there's enough, and hopefully this doesn't offend anyone, but there's enough falcons and eagles and kestrels and you know, take your bird. There's enough of those in the drone space, but we still wanted to kind of connect it to something aerial. So Anzu is the name of a mythological creature in Mesopotamian lore, which is like a thunder bird god. And so it's always good to have a name, a company name towards the top of the alphabet, just for searchability and findability when you're looking at lists of things. So
Oh
that was
yeah.
kind of like an added bonus. That's kind of what maybe drove it over the edge, is that it started with A. It's short, it's unique, it's trademarkable or registerable. But yeah, it had some tie with something that flies and is interesting, and so that's how we landed on that.
That's fantastic. Now, I've had a lot of questions, and I know, you know, my audience really well, and I think one of them has been, can you explain how, you know, you Raptor and Raptor T are just awesome, okay? Can you explain how you did the licensing with DJI? Because people are just like, how does all that work?
Yeah.
So if you could go through that with us, that would be fantastic.
So I think that it helps that I was attached in one way or another to DJI for so many years. Being a former DJI employee, they kind of knew who I was. I had a reputation within the organization, both stateside and in Shenzhen. And then while I was at FLIR co-manufactured 2 products, ZenMuse XT and ZenMuse XT2. And there was a period of time, and this could have started probably 2018, where FLIR and DJI were in discussions to doing a joint venture for FLIR to manufacture DJI drones in the United States with the FLIR branding on it, controlling the whole product once it was manufactured. Those talks fell through because at the time the FLIR CEO was 20-year Army retired and valued the defense side of FLIR more than the commercial side of FLIR, which I don't think it's a good or a bad decision. I think you could have maybe done both in parallel. But these were already conversations that I had had. Now, this wasn't a licensing discussion back then, but it was how you take FLIR, DJI technology and manufacture it in a different way to satisfy some of the needs of domestic users here in the United States. So when probably now is closer to 15 months ago, there was a conversation between myself and several others where we were in a meeting with some DJI folks, and they said, we're losing market share or we're losing sales, not seeing the same volume in states like Florida, Mississippi, and where there's state legislation that has impacted the drone use. What can we do? And that conversation at the time wasn't taken extremely seriously. It was kind of like a brainstorming of like ways that you could approach that. But within, a few months, it got boiled down to doing something that is now what is the licensing agreement we have with them, which gives Anzu Robotics a number of years of exclusivity to manufacture DJI Enterprise products. Basically, they give us the recipe and we cook it in our own kitchen. And it happens to be right now our kitchen is in Malaysia. So we source componentry from sometimes similar sources or the same sources as DJI, but we don't source anything from DJI. They gave us kind of the roadmap and the plan to build things, and then we ran with it. So hopefully that kind of covers what that was. But I think that I was uniquely placed to do it. I don't think if someone knocked on their door and said they wanted to do it, that it would have been received in the same way. And it's been a challenging but rewarding 9-10 months that we've actually gone down this road. One last thing I'd say to you and your viewers and listeners is that I think that when you see this as like a clone product, you think it must have been easy. They just like handed it to you. There has been so much work, like tireless work, to go through finding a contract manufacturer, sourcing componentry, figuring out how to manufacture at quality, take the SDK and the flight control stack and bring that to the US, find a software partner to rewrite it, make sure that it was all rid or void of cybersecurity concerns, create a brand, create a go-to-market strategy. So there's so many things that have happened. And I think that has really been discounted in a way that the product looks the same. Absolutely. We're proud that it looks the same. We're proud that it flies the same. We're proud that when you're flying an Anzu Robotics drone, you're like, this is very much a DJI-like experience. That's intentional. But what you don't have as a country of origin of China, you don't have a company that's based in China or that has the same scrutiny as DJI. We're securing your data in the United States on AWS East encrypted servers. And so that was the precipice of all this. Now, the current legislation that's being proposed changes a lot of things, and I think it changes probably a lot of things for those that are amongst your viewership, which we could talk about it a little bit, but I don't want to go too long-winded without telling you or giving you an opportunity to kind of interject some other things, making sure I covered it all.
Well, no, you're going exactly where I want to go. By the way, this is Ron Brown. I don't know if you've met Ron before or not.
Randall, we were on a show a couple years ago when you were at Autel.
Well, probably not face to face though, right?
Right. Well, yeah, just like this. Yeah.
On a podcast?
Yeah, on actually on Johnny and Ray's show.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Well, I'm actually on that show on Thursday, so I'm getting a lot of Florida love this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm only a part-time Florida person. Winter. I'm at the Jersey Shore right now, just down the street from Atlantic City.
Awesome. Good for you. Keep your money in your pockets and not in the machines, my friend.
Yes, good advice.
Well, Randall, you're going exactly where I wanted to go for a few minutes here, because everybody, it's like a feeding frenzy with what's going on in Washington right now. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. Now, the way things are, and we understand, as you just stated, it's all made in Malaysia for you. Okay. Now, you did talk about your parts. Now, and I'm not a complete expert on this bill, but is there something about, are the parts sourced in China or are they sourced elsewhere?
Yeah.
How's that working?
When it comes to sourcing, we source, again, nothing from DJI, which means DJI is not part of our supply chain. If DJI cannot keep us from getting the things we need to build what we want. That was the purpose of that. It makes it so that they don't have control over our production. They don't know how many we're producing. They can't change the pricing of what we're purchasing. We source things from sometimes the same source. Sometimes it's the same part, but we don't source anything from DJI. Now, to get the made in Malaysia stamp, you have to have a certain amount of the manufacturing and a certain amount of the componentry sourced from within the country. And so we removed or moved sources to Malaysia as much as we could. Now, again, we were on kind of this quick, rapid get to market plan because we wanted eyes on Anzu Robotics, not in 2025, but in 2024. So what we did is we did everything that was necessary to get the Made in Malaysia stamp of approval and to allow us to get to market quickly. What that left us with is we have a drone that's country of origin Malaysia, not China, and a company based in the US with US software and all of that. It satisfies a number of these state legislations that have said you can't buy Chinese, you can't buy DJI. That was the purpose of Anzu Robotics 1.0. That was the purpose when we initially launched this, because there was no concept of a complete ban of DJI at the time. That was not on the radar. We were trying to supply state officials, whether police, fire departments, with drones that were affordable that they could build their fleet on. That was it. But now it's become something so much greater. So as you're talking about this legislation that currently stands, which is the Countering CCP Act by Congresswoman Stefanik in New York, is to ban DJI from getting FCC certification on their drones and use the airwaves in the United States with new products. Now, will they shut down existing DJI products? In the language that I've read, no. It just means DJI can't put new products into the market because they can't get FCC certification. However, it also says DJI and subsidiaries and affiliates. Now, a subsidiary is a 100% owned entity from a parent company. We are not that. An affiliate is a partially owned and controlled entity. That's another from a parent company. That is not us either. We are wholly American, owned by nobody related to or involved with DJI's business at all. So the current legislation and how it's written does not impact Anzu Robotics at all. It doesn't say you can't make stuff in Malaysia. It doesn't say that you can't license stuff. And how I see it is, if there is an effort to include Anzu in this, they would either need to state something like you can't conduct business relationships with DJI or its affiliates or subsidiaries. That causes a weird thing when it comes to Hasselblad, which is a DJI-owned company that has nothing to do with any of this. And now you would have Hasselblad banned in the United States as a result, because as a subsidiary of DJI, which I think would be weird. Also, if they said you can't buy drones from Malaysia, there'd be no reason or precedence for that, as Malaysia is a friendly country with the United States with clear trade relationships. That would be very odd, and there would be a lot bigger companies than mine fighting against that. And then the last piece would be having any business or transactional relationship with any company on an entity list. That would mean that some manufacturers that source things, let's say from Huawei or something like that, and they integrate it into a product, but they don't sell it in the United States because it's on an entity list, but they sell it all over the world in other places. Now you would be precluding them from their businesses. And that could be large Fortune 500 companies that are manufacturing things differently for a different region. Now they would be precluded from doing business as well. I think that opens up a whole can of worms. So as of today, I feel quite confident Anzu Robotics has a business model that stays and is not impacted by the current legislation, but we also have many contingency plans that we could take if things move one way or another as well.
Good. Ron, I'm sure you probably have a question for Randall.
Well, just about Mark. So you when you set your business plan up, you were kind of cognizant at that time of this DJI. I hate this. People don't say the word ban. This DJI bill coming, so you kind of bulletproofed your whole business plan to avoid being caught in the trap of this bill.
I would say that genuinely, I did not know about this bill. I knew what happened in Florida, what's happening in Mississippi, the bills in Texas and Tennessee, and the way that language is being written on where you can have drones supplied from. So we were cognizant of that, but not what's happening now, which goes to kind of the consumer grade drones that now are being precluded from hobbyists and cinematographers, that we didn't even think about that market, because there was no reason to think that they would be sensitive about country of origin. They don't care if things come from China. I'm sure in my office alone, there's hundreds of things that come out of China. It doesn't bother most people. But now that there is this threat of a reduction of ability to buy drones that are made in China or drones that are made from DJI, it opens up a whole different question, which is who's going to fill that gap. because that market is so important. The consumer flyer is really who ends up being the professional flyer, and the young people of the world don't start on $10,000 drones. They start on less expensive drones. And so if there's no drones to supply to those people, and there's no manufacturer that can make hundreds of thousands or millions of drones a year, and they're not as safe and they're not as reliable, that's a problem. And I think that we are in a position to address that, which is a very different thing than I was saying 8 weeks ago, because of what this bill has proposed.
And what part of the market will your drones fill that gap? What kind of people do mapping, or what kind of people are going to be buying your drone in place of the
So currently we have two versions, the Raptor and the Raptor T, which are variants of DJI's Mavic 3 Enterprise and Mavic 3 Thermal. Now, I will caveat, lots of people are like, I want a Mini, or I want an Air, or I want a Mavic 3 Pro. I don't make those. Now, 8 weeks ago, I said, not interested. Like, I don't want to do that, because in my mind, there was no reason to. Now that could change, but as we're focusing just on what exists today, the Mavic 3 Enterprise would be for visual inspection, surveying and mapping, any time that you need just good quality mechanical shutter, high resolution RGB imagery. The Raptor T is obviously a thermal enabled drone. So now we're talking about solar inspection. We're talking about roof inspection. We're also getting into public safety for fire departments and police departments, search and rescue, those sorts of missions. But I mean, that's not an exhaustive list. I'm pretty sure that, there are endless applications of drone technology that we haven't really even seen surfaced. But with those two products, you can pretty much cover any large scale use of drones that is not about content creation, whether videography or really quality photography for the purpose of selling it or making it online. I'm sure that it's good enough, but that's not what these drones are intended for. And I think that you'll find those folks shying away from it.
Yeah, so you're going to be filling an important gap that's going to be created by this bill, taking these enterprise level drones. Well, any not current ones, but any new ones coming down the road, you'll be able to fill that gap. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Randall, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I saw you pop up that question, and I think there's a lot of questions that come up that are what anyone would call frequently asked questions. I get asked about the color green everywhere I go. So I will say, for anybody that is here, I'm going to answer the question, why green? But if you go to anzurobotics.com and you go to our FAQ, I have written the answers of every single question that's on our FAQ, me personally. And they are truly frequently asked questions. They are the things that you asked about the name Anzu, that's on there. You want to know about licensing agreements, it's on there. You want to know about how we're handling service and support, it's on there. But the question also is, why green? I was talking to Bill before we went live, and I was trying to express how much work has gone into making this possible. It's very easy for people to say, you just got some green paint and painted a Mavic 3. And like, it's fine and it's funny to some extent, but like, it completely undermines all the effort that has been placed, the sleepless nights, the communication overseas, and the complexity of doing this. So I hope that as you think about it, that's not a discounted concept. Now, the why green piece. So back, let's say it was late last summer, early fall, there was a conversation with our contract manufacturer on what they could source as far as plastic moldings that would be ruggedized in the same way that the DJI models are. So the same material, make the same composition. And they basically gave us a template with colors. Now, we viewed it on a computer screen. And we said, what color do we like? There was blue, there was red, there was orange, which is already taken. There were grays and whites and blacks, etc. And there was green. And we looked at all those colors of, not gradients of them, but just the colors. Like you pull out a box of crayons with 12 colors. That's what you got to choose from. You can't complain about it. You can't dull it down or change it. And we said green. That green looks nice. Now, what I thought that green would end up being is much more like kind of an army dusty green. What it showed up was quite weird, and we had already made a first batch of units, and it would have slowed down everything by months, by probably 3-4 months, and we just said, not you. We said, forget it is the F word I would use. We said, forget it. Let's just move forward, make it part of our identity. It's quite identifiable. It's noticeable. It's weird. It's not what was intended, but like this is just the situation we're in, and I don't regret making that decision to move forward. And so again, I answer that question, why green all the time? Maybe if it was a different color green, we would get it less, but that is it. We just assumed green was a good color based off of what we saw on a computer screen. It ended up being different than we thought, but we leaned into it.
Yeah, and definitely differentiate yourself from DJI and other drone brands that green. So that's probably a good thing.
If anyone copies that green, they're crazy. But
there you go. Yeah.
I think people say like imitation is the highest form of flattery. So we'll see.
I guess one of my questions has been, Randall, as far as marketing is concerned, because I majored in that in college, and I noticed everything right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, everything is done out of your website. Is that correct? As far as sales is concerned?
No, you are not correct. We do not sell anything directly. So Anzu Robotics does not transact anything with end users. The reason is back in 2015, I set up a network of DJI enterprise dealers, and those dealers I truly believe are the heart and soul of the drone industry and the unsung heroes of the drone industry. When manufacturers don't use a dealer network, i.e. big US partners, the two biggest US partners have kind of cut the dealer network out. You no longer have those state by state cheerleaders that have an existing base of customers that are going to promote that product. And I think it's a small price to pay in cutting in margin for those dealers to have localized support, somebody that people are already interacting with and engaging with. So the ease of purchase is not from our website. Some of the dealers, maybe you could easily purchase from their website, but that is the source for everything is through that dealer network, not for us, through us directly.
So that's how everything comes from them. Now, as far as distribution is concerned, do you operate it out of where you're at in Utah, or how does that chain work?
Yeah, so we have a third-party logistics company, a warehouse that houses all of our inventory here. And then we have two master distributors, which are Exertis, which is in Buffalo, New York, but they ship out of Phoenix, and Drone Nerds, which is based in southern Florida. And so it basically goes from us to these master distributors, to the dealer network, and then to the end users, just for the purpose of warehousing things, where the stock was going to go. We didn't really know what would happen when we launched this thing. And what it's turned into is, early on, I said it was like 3-4x what I anticipated. But at this point, especially what happens with this legislation, it could be, an insurmountable amount of attention that we get because of this. And I will say this publicly and for the 100th time, I do not want this bill to pass. I think it is detrimental to this entire industry. I feel like we go to an ice age or a dark age, and we will take so many steps backwards. I don't need that pressure. I think that I serve a purpose as it stands today. I don't need to see tens of thousands of people lose their livelihoods or not know exactly how they're going to move forward. I don't need to see, large drone software companies no longer have an addressable market because they only really have now one US made closed system that doesn't really work well with others. And so it's nonsense at the end of the day. But if it does happen, I feel like we serve as a safety net and maybe a glimmer of hope that we won't have these huge disruptions. And I take pride in that. I think that people can trust me to try to do the right thing. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not perfect. I have limitations for sure. But I think that I would rather it be me than a lot of people in this position, because I know that my intentions are to serve the people that I've been serving for the last 10 years. It's not opportunism that brought me here.
Well, one of the things I can tell you after I took a pretty good look at the website, okay? And one of the things that people said, and I'm just going to go here for a second, was Specta, okay? They're real impressed with the Air. It's come out, it's been good. For me, I've been impressed with the Mini. It's been good. But the one thing that they asked, number one, was support, okay?
Yeah.
What about support? Where do they have something like DJI Care Refresh, okay? And the other thing that people had asked me were accessories, okay? Now, Cogito or Specta, they have told me that they're going to have accessories available out on their website. It said 1st June. Now they're telling me July, and the same with the Mini. Okay, but you know what, Randall? And I will say this: you've dotted every I and you've crossed every T, because you go out there. And a gentleman asked in the chat about what about extended warranties. I said there's Anzu Care. Okay,
Mhm.
you put together something. Okay, and that's one of the things when I majored in business, one of the things that we had to do our senior year, our senior project, was to start a company and run it through the year. And this was in an old DEC PDP 11. I mean, we're talking ancient computer, okay? But we had to run that through there and invest in certain aspects of the company, what we thought was going to do things. We actually came out, we were number 2 in the class. But you've done this, okay? You can tell you've done your homework. I mean, you look at that, and that's one of the things right away. Somebody asks, "What about extended warranty?" Boom, there's Anzu Care. It's right there. I mean, you've thought of these things, which I think is just absolutely fantastic.
Well, I've been part of drone manufacturing for 9 years. I've been a part of 6 of them. I've seen bad ones. I've seen good ones. I've heard how we could make things better during my time at all of them. I posted something on LinkedIn yesterday because it was my 10th anniversary, and I've spent probably closer to 25,000 hours working in the drone industry, 3,000 something, 3,651 days to the day. I've learned a lot. I've listened a lot, and that's why part of Anzu Robotics' identity, and I guess it's my identity, is I want to hear from as many people as possible. I don't think anyone realizes how many emails I respond to a day. It's hundreds, no joke, and they are sometimes long, not one paragraph, multiple paragraphs. And I want to hear those stories, and I want to hear how we can help. That's where all these things were born. Is I know a good drone company when I see one, and now I get to create one with some of the best technology in the world. You don't want to rely on me to make engineering decisions. You want to rely on me to make sure the customer is happy at the end of the day. That is something I truly believe I can do. So Anzu Care, I mean, like a lot of companies have care programs. We include it with every drone without question. It's not a choice. You are getting the ability to have a whoopsie daisy, a crash, or something happened to your drone, and that it is covered. We wanted to do that for 2 reasons. One is because we know drone users. We know the rate in which people use that program for other drones, and we think that it's high enough that it's worth having. And we want our customers' experience in the service and support, like you mentioned, to be seamless. So if someone crashes their drone, we just say, send it to us. We receive it, we send them a new one, and then we work out whether it is a warranty issue or an incidental or accidental crash. Either way, the user is going to get a new drone. We just have to figure out who's responsible for that. And it's not the customer shaking in their boots waiting for their bill. We wanted to make that so that the customer has less downtime. It's less back and forth. It's less about reading logs and saying, "Oh, you push the stick this way when it was supposed to go that way," and now it's beefing with our customers. We just want it to be a nice experience, and that's why we included that with everything.
Go ahead, Ron. I'm sure you got something.
No, I mean that's yeah, that's you've had a lot of time to prepare for something like this. You've been in the business all those hours, so you're very well prepared to do something like this, and that's a great thing. As far as setting up the care program, I mean it sounds wonderful. It sounds like you really fill a gap that maybe is really going to need filling even more than you figured in the coming months, years, however long it takes. For all the consequences of this bill to affect all the end users.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to do over talking, but I'm kind of answering some of the questions that I've seen pop up as I give these answers. Somebody asked earlier, mentioned the Avata, for instance. we look at the landscape of drones that are needed, and that has changed drastically since we launched things. At first, it was like, do we go down the route of doing an M30 or an M350? What other enterprise product could we build? That's the Lauren's question, is what I'm answering at the end of this. So there's a lot of questions about where we take this roadmap of Anzu Robotics 2.0, which is NDAA compliant, pulling componentry out of China and building a wider range of products. We don't exactly know where that's going to go because we need to see what happens with this bill. If this bill does not keep you from buying a DJI drone and flying it in your backyard or for real estate or for whatever, I'm not going to make one right now. There's no reason to do that. Yeah. But if that does happen, there's a reason to accelerate that over some other things. But because we are waiting on this bill, we built this company to address geopolitical concerns about drones, data security concerns, and political concerns.
Right.
We know that what happens with this bill is going to spread. It's going to spread to Canada, UK, Australia, Japan, Eastern, Western Europe for sure, maybe parts of Central and South America, but like there, you can kind of like color in hot countries that are going to definitely be looking to make the next steps and ones that are less concerning. We have the ability. When we certified our drone with FCC to sell in the United States, we also got CE certification and other certifications required to sell around the world at that time. But we got to make sure that we stabilize the business. We got to see what this bill looks like. We have to, and then we have to set up the ability to ship into another country and then support everything that happens in that country, because not everything can come back to the United States or Malaysia or however we work that. So to Lauren's question of whether we're US only, that's not the intention. We intend to be a global drone manufacturer, but there are so many things that we need to make sure that we get right here for the longevity of Anzu Robotics, not only in the US, but globally. We have to have a reputation of being able to serve our customers, have things in stock, have high quality support. And so I would assume within 2024, we will see international expansion, but that will be when the time is right.
Randall, Richard asked this question a couple times in the chat. Bill, if you highlight, he said, "Are there tariffs on Anzu drones?"
That's the whole the entirety of the question.
Yes.
So no. Part of manufacturing in Malaysia is that Malaysia and the United States have a trade arrangement in which there's no tariffs that come from anything manufactured out of Malaysia. Now, with the current, with the most recent drone as a first responder bill that talked about putting tariffs on Chinese manufactured drones or drones that have Chinese componentry. I haven't read that bill in its entirety. I can't say that I'm an expert on it, but I would tell you today, your favorite drone manufacturer, even if it's a US based company, has Chinese componentry in it for sure. So I don't know how that bill's written, but if it just has Chinese componentry in it, everything's going to get tariffed. However, I don't know the hierarchy. Like if you have a trade arrangement like NAFTA, or if you have a trade arrangement like what's with the US and Malaysia, there's no tariff on products that are made in Malaysia that come to the United States. However, if they're saying, but you have Chinese componentry in it, therefore it is tariffed, that could change. But as of right now, no, we don't pay any tariffs when we import our finished products into the United States.
Randall,
and Bill, real quick, Drone Roll Tours asked and says, he made the comment, he says, Anzu is so expensive. How do your prices compare to comparable DJI drones?
Yeah, so I would assume that comment is from somebody that expects us to make a consumer grade product that is comparing it to an Air or even a Mavic 3 Pro or just a Mavic 3 Vanilla. Mm-hmm. When you compare to a Mavic 3 Enterprise, our price is $5,099 for a Raptor. That is $1,500 more than a DJI variant. But consider we don't have the economies of scale of DJI making hundreds of thousands of them. We source more componentry in Malaysia. We manufacture in Malaysia. We have a U.S. software, U.S. support, U.S. services. So it's just a different thing. So to go from $3,600 to $5,100, it's a jump, but we're still significantly under any other drone that you could find in its class. Our thermal drone is $7,699, which is $2,000 more than the DJI variant. So you're paying a 30% premium, but again, we're talking about a very different situation as far as the manufacturing and how it's done. Okay, so are we going to? So basically, Lauren, I'm guessing you're asking, are we going to manufacture our own product? Obviously, the wins will tell us what we need to do. Being a drone manufacturer and doing that from scratch is not a very successful endeavor for most, especially in the United States. We've seen a lot of cases of that not working. But you were always competing against DJI, the 3DRs of the world, the GoPros of the world were competing against DJI. But with a vacuum or a void of DJI, that could change. However, if you have a licensing agreement with hundreds of millions of dollars of R&D done into the drone development like we have with DJI, I don't think there's really a reason for us to say we want to make our own small footprint drone that doesn't fit today. It could be down the line. But if we're talking about fixed wing, VTOL, ground robots, like there's all sorts of things that could happen. But I would say that today, Anzu Robotics we're not a hardware manufacturer or a hardware engineering firm. Software very well could be that we employ software engineers to make it so that we have features beyond what is available with existing products. For sure. I think that would be very sensible. But hardware, with this licensing agreement for as long as we have it, unless we are precluded from continuing this relationship for one reason or another with legislation, I don't think we would go down that road anytime soon.
Randall, I think one of the questions that I had was, as far as, and I've seen a number of people ask this question is, okay, I'm a consumer drone user or Part 107 or whatever, okay, and they
Yeah.
said, you know what, I really want to get a Raptor, okay, and I've told people, I said, you need to wrap your head around this and understand what you're getting, okay, you're not getting a Mavic 3 Pro, you're not getting a DJI Air 3. Okay, you're getting a Mavic 3 Enterprise, basically, okay,
Variant,
and
yeah.
understand what that's for. What would can you kind of expound upon that a little bit because I know I get this question so much.
Yeah. So I think that what has led to a disservice for the drone user in general is there's this obsession with DJI knowing their customer. And this was born well before I was there, but definitely I was a symptom of it. Why do you create something called DJI Enterprise? Is that you say you have this separate channel that sells drones to police departments and farmers and surveyors and whatever. They might be buying the same product, Phantom 4. You have a Phantom 4 and you bought it at Best Buy, you're a consumer. You have a Phantom 4 and you bought it at Firecam that sells to cops and fire departments. It's an enterprise drone, right? That's how they delineated how big the enterprise market is. Now, there are many reports that come out every year that say this is how big the market's going to be in 5 years from now. This is how many drones were sold here. You could see quotes on DJI is 50% of the market, and you could see quotes that DJI are 90% of the market. At one point, Randall Warnas was maybe one of the best sources for knowing those exact numbers. Now they are aged now, but I knew who was buying all of this stuff. I knew how much business DJI was conducting, and I had a pretty good idea of what everyone else was conducting. I was at FLIR where everyone was buying their thermal cores from FLIR. I knew how many drones they were selling. I knew a lot at one point in my career about other drone businesses, and I still try to keep a pulse on that and keep good relationships with manufacturers and software developers for not for that reason, but it's part of it. So when we talk about the Mavic 3 Enterprise and Thermal and how they are different, DJI made an intentional effort on the hardware side rather than the reseller side to split their products. So on Mavic 3 Enterprise or the Raptor, you cannot take video in any other way than 4K at 30 frames a second. That discourages a cinematographer from buying that product. You don't get to unleash it for all the things that you'd want to do. There's a bespoke product for that. And the consumer team at DJI want to protect their their business, make a product that is special to a videographer or a photographer. And so they say, enterprise people, don't put our features in your stuff because we want to save that customer for us, and vice versa. So you'll find enterprise features that are not available, like an SDK that integrates with Drone Deploy and Pix4D and all this other stuff, because you can't do very sophisticated mapping with an Air or even with a Mavic 3 Pro because you do not have access to those things. So it's all data driven. It's all like the concept is, who are our customers? Who's buying this stuff? And they need to delineate that somehow. So again, a cinematographer wouldn't necessarily be interested in a Phantom or in a Mavic 3 Enterprise or a Raptor because it doesn't give you the same camera controls that you might have with a Mavic 3 Pro. And I'm learning how sensitive people are to that as I go down this road, and people are like, I need something not Chinese. I need something that, I've been reached out to by large sports organizations, both teams and the leagues as a whole, and the broadcasters that cover those leagues recently. They're like, I just need a really good drone that captures, this video frame rate. And it's like, sorry, it's not me. I would love to be solving that problem for you, but that's just a feature set that I don't have access to. In the future iterations, back to Lauren's questions, what will we engineer? We might engineer that you can take this Mavic 3 Enterprise experience and now you do have the ability to change it to 24 frames a second or 60 frames a second. That's all part of the vision of what we do going forward.
I guess one of the other questions, and maybe kind of departing ways and just kind of, going back to the whole Countering CCP Drone Act, okay, and as it's written and as Congresswoman Stefaniak said, this was a security concern, and they really kind of beat this drum the whole time, but yet, it's like we can't show this to you because it's so secret, or it's so vital to national security kind of a thing. Okay.
Right.
But then on the other hand, we hear rumblings like, Congresswoman Stefaniak, one of her aides used to work with Skydio or for Skydio, and that this was Amazon Prime has just gotten okay by the FCC to go ahead with beyond BVLOS and start to do Prime Air flights with that. And I know UPS is probably getting their hands in the mix. Okay. And my take on it is this, and this is just me from everything, and I'm digesting everything here. Okay, this really isn't a national security concern. Okay, because if it was, okay, this would have been, they would have stopped this, 2 or 3 years ago. Okay. My whole thing is this: it's business driven, okay, and it's making a pathway for companies, say like Amazon or UPS or Walmart. Okay, it's part of the equation. And Skydio, they have a big contract with the federal government and the Defense Department, and it's clearing a path for them to do this. I just wanted to get your thoughts on all that.
Sure. So I think that first, I would encourage everyone here to go and look at what that bill is. Second, if you want to keep flying DJI drones or Chinese manufactured drones and you don't feel threatened by the data security skepticism, go and let your Congress people know that that's how you feel. This will impact tens of thousands of drone pilots around. Well, it'll impact hundreds of thousands on the both consumer and commercial side, but people are losing their jobs when this bill is passed. Now, who does it benefit, or what are the concerns? How did we get here? There was a time in which DJI made something called a Gov Edition, and that Gov Edition allowed you to basically be in no data mode. It would not produce data, it wouldn't store data, and it wouldn't send data. The Department of Interior took that drone in their hands with the purpose of saying, we have to evaluate whether this would be suitable for long-term use in any environment. And they came back and said, DJI Gov Edition, what I don't know if is what Mavic generation, it might have been a Mavic 2 Gov or something like that. We have not found any reason to be concerned. Department of Interior has this drone for a long period of time and reports that. shortly after, I believe it was the Department of Homeland Security comes out with a statement saying, we have reason to believe that DJI presents a concern when it comes to data security. What that should mean for Department of Homeland Security saying that is that the Department of Homeland Security or DoD in general probably shouldn't use DJI drones in sensitive areas, like just to be safe. Now, should it have stopped the Department of Interior from moving forward with what they assessed was going to be good for them when they really picked that thing apart? I don't think it should have precluded that. But what that led to is an entire government kind of backing away from DJI and seeing them as a problem. Now, when it comes to data security, there are reasons to believe that there's justifiable concerns. Not that I believe DJI wants your data, and when a firefighter is flying over a wildland fire, I don't think that that should be controlled by government at all. I don't think that. I think that most organizations should be able to choose what they use and take those calculated risks in the same way that you would with having a cell phone on inside your business versus making them be locked up in a locker. If you're going into a Home Depot, they don't make you lock up your phone. You could take pictures, you could take videos, whatever, but there's certain companies that they don't let you have phones with cameras and things like that. It's like those are business decisions, or those are personal security decisions. So when we talk about security or national security, I don't think it's about data. I think it's about supply chain. So if there's a conflict, can we still manufacture drones? If there's a conflict with China, if trade ceases to exist with China, how do you continue to manufacture drones? Now, again, your favorite US manufacturer of drones still uses Chinese componentry, even if it's as stupid as screws or motors or ESCs, cameras, sensors, or whatever they're getting from China. If there is a conflict and there is an embargo and you can no longer buy things from China, there is a problem. It slows down your ability to develop. Now, Stefanik and others, I don't believe, care about the commercial drone market. They certainly do not care about the consumer drone market. They're worried about the military access to drones and the ability to participate in warfare, not only the US, but when we get involved with other wars around the world, that drones have become very meaningful. And so if we lose the ability to manufacture or keep a flow of these drones out into the market, that's a problem. So how do you create an environment in which you have your own domestic motor manufacturers? You create an environment in which there's demand for a product that has domestic motors on it. Even though the price is going to be 3x, 5x, 10x, you force everyone to buy that product that now makes it so there is a US motor manufacturer making tens of thousands of motors a year. That's how you do it. You have to force that scale. And to me, as a business person, as an American, as a patriotic American, like, I get it. I don't think it should be at your expense. I don't think you should force the American person or the American taxpayer tax dollars to fund that. I think you have to have other solutions. And for me, I've said this publicly, but what has been proposed in this Drone as a First Responder Act, where you basically tax the Chinese drones coming in and then put those into domestic manufacturing. I was saying that years ago, and I'm not taking credit for it, but I believed in that concept. If you want to do something, make it less lucrative for a Chinese manufacturer to sell here. Make it harder. Sure, 50% tax. Even whoever said that my products are too expensive, double the price of whatever you bought. That if that's the new normal, I think people would accept that. And now we're using those funds to make domestic capabilities. But don't say a fire department in Florida can't continue to fight fires with that drone because of data security. Like, that is just like almost demeaning the intelligence of the US population. And I think that there should be a forum like this where Congresswoman Stefanik is with drone experts and speaks to how she justifies these things. And hopefully these classified documents that are apparently being asked for to be released, covering the drone data security from DJI and what caused those concerns. There was a request apparently today or yesterday on this, that we as American people can see what the big deal is. Because like you said, if it's really that big of a deal, it would have been cold stop. You can't use
Yeah,
this stuff anymore.
well, and I've said this ad nauseum on the show. I mean, China has their own space station up there, okay? And you know that they have their technology as far as their satellites are concerned. They know our infrastructure backwards and forwards. I mean, because you kept hearing the argument, oh, you're flying over infrastructure, or oh, taking a look, a glance at a military base or this or that. They already know all of this. It's just like it's one of those arguments that they were putting out that just absolutely had zero merit to it.
Sure. And I think that in fairness, Bill, is I would say that that's assumptive on our parts. We don't know exactly what the US government is worried about protecting. There could be things that they don't want seen, and they see activity around those things and they're like, "Uh-oh, like our secret thing is kind of not so secret anymore." We don't know. And that's
Right.
in fairness to our civilian status, is that there are possibilities that this congresswoman sat in meetings where they were like, "Let me divulge this," and they're like, "No way, that can't happen. We got to stop that." Right? Like, in fairness, in just thinking everyone's trying to do the best job they can, not being lobbied, not being paid, not alley-ooping a friend that they can make more money. It's just there has to be some sense in these people. You have to trust somebody in this country to say they're probably just doing their best. They might have a different viewpoint than you, different data points, different understandings, but they're trying their best. And I've tried. I actually do. I wrote the congresswoman on my birthday last week because I said, it's my birthday, I can do something stupid. So I wrote you a letter being like, I understand that we're on opposite sides of this issue, but I think we can coexist. And I think that we can learn from each other. And I think that I don't see you as an enemy. I'm not going to wear a, down with Stefanik shirt. Like, I don't feel that way about her or anyone trying their best to do their jobs, even if they are not, it doesn't represent my interests. So again, we don't know why this is happening. What we do know is it's going to cause a crazy amount of tension for drone users and companies that are fashioned around building drone technology, especially the software providers, because you can't have 100 engineers working at a software development firm to make software for 5,000 drones. It just, they lose their jobs. They go work for Apple, they go work for Google, go work for Amazon Air. They'll be fine, but we no longer have them in the drone space. And that's the problem. That's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Ron, do you have any more questions for Randall?
No, I think we cover a lot. We cover a lot of ground tonight,
Yeah.
and of course, it's always hard for us, and we may have to give up getting new drones from a vague term like data breaches and stuff like that. We most things even with politics, most things we get a little bit more definition to bills and whatever. So this is being this vague on a reason is kind of not the usual thing, even for our politicians and whatever. Even we kind of like when the whole the routers, the Huawei routers, we have more information on that subject than we do here.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we deserve to have more information for sure.
Even if it's redacted to some degree, of course it's going to be redacted, but just a little bit more detail, than we're getting now without, being specifics to, like you said, locations and stuff like that, or, how the information was acquired.
I'd be very surprised if that data concern applies to 95% of drone users. I think there was another path that we could have taken and just said, critical infrastructure, here's the definition of that, firms that inspect these things, or you can't fly drones around them, or whatever.
Or they're required to fly in low data mode. The DJI has low data mode now. So anybody that, they could ask everybody to fly in low data mode. I'd certainly be happy to flick the low data mode switch on and fly, I don't need the, I don't need to transfer information.
Different requirements could have been built in to save us a lot of headache, but the headache is coming. We'll see if we, wake up the next day and feel good, or if we feel like crap the next day when the day of reckoning comes. But again, I mean, just kind of to wrap up my piece, is Anzu Robotics is created to try to ease this problem. And again, I'm not perfect. I just care. I care about what my output is to the world. I care about the people that I interact with. I care that people are able to make choices for themselves and that we preserve the free market in the United States, and that isn't this isn't like a pet project for us. This is you've done 27 seasons and 25 episodes in this season. I believe that's what that means. It's not a small time investment. This is part of our identity, and we're just defending that identity. I believe we all feel like we wish we had a bigger voice in these conversations of where these bills have gone. In the supporting evidence of Congresswoman Stefanik's bill, she cites all these things that are only confirming how she already feels, but there's not a lot of counter to that. There's not a lot of people saying, well, this is how I'm conducting my business. This is how it would disrupt that. So I feel like we all just need to band together. I've never seen the community more I don't know, more of a community than I have over the past few weeks with this.
Of the same mind, maybe is a good way to say it. Of the same mind or same.
Yeah, we all want. I don't want American drone manufacturers to suffer, but I don't think they should win based off of banning their greatest competition. I think that's silly. And so we'll see. But I am here for you, the drone user. I may have consumer products down the line that will be less expensive, that will be good for photographers and videographers and hobbyists and things like that.
And if you don't, somebody else will.
Sure, but I believe we will take that on. However, what I'm saying is reach out to me. My email is randall@anzurobotics.com. Randall. I respond to every single email I get. Sometimes it takes me a day or two because I get a lot of them, but I respond. And if you have ideas, if you have suggestions, it's not going to be overnight, but I will implement things that make sense into this business. It is for you to help me build what you want. And so please reach out to me. There's a lot of flexibility. We're starting with the basis of the best drone technology available, and then let's build upon that and make it ideal in every sense, and cover what the Congresswoman wants and what the DoD wants, and also what the consumers want. We try to tackle that all together.
I wish you all success.
One of the things that in wrapping up here, for me, knowing the way our legislative body works and everything, rarely does a bill come from the House, and when it gets to the Senate, it's going to get sliced and diced. Okay, they've already said that, all right, but they weren't talking about our portion, what we're most interested in. But I think that's going to I think that's going to garner a lot of attention, and I think one of the things. I think Randall, you know who Vic Moss is,
Of course.
and I've heard him say, and I think he said this on Ken had him on a couple of weeks ago,
Yep.
and one of the things he said, they don't necessarily look at all the responses, but they look at the number of responses that they're getting into their offices, the congressmen and senators, and as those numbers are going up, okay, that's causing them to pay attention, and that's causing some concern. So one of the things that I want to say before we close out tonight, guys, it does matter to call your congressman. Okay, just don't send that email. That email's good, but you follow it up with a phone call. Talk to a staffer, and tell them, that you're opposed to the Countering CCP Drones Act, and tell them why. Just don't tell them, well, I won't be able to fly. No, tell them things like, it's going to ground first responders. Okay, they won't have access to life-saving tools. I mean, SWAT teams, firemen, ad nauseum. My son-in-law who uses this in, for they do underground utilities. They won't be able to do things like that. Just a whole host of things. And then also too, as Randall says, thousands of people are going to be affected by it. I mean, there are people like Ken Dono and Billy Kyle who make a living from this. That's their livelihood. That's what they do. So this is so important that your voice needs to be heard. It does matter. Please do call. Get your numbers. They're easily accessible. Randall, I cannot thank you enough for having you on the show tonight. You have been fantastic. You've answered all my questions. I know you've answered Ron's questions as well, and several out in the audience. We'd like to revisit this a few months and down the road. Obviously, have you back. because this has been so good. And this is something, again, this is so important to us. It's kind of aligned us all. It doesn't matter our walks of life. We love doing something. We love flying drones, and we love what drones, the good that drones can bring to us, and we want to see that continue. So, Randall, any last words or closing thoughts?
No, just appreciate you guys sharing your platform with me, the people that I haven't met before, that I get an opportunity to kind of tell the story of what I'm doing and what I'm about. And I hope that we can all grow together as a community of friends looking out for each other based off of this. So I appreciate you guys letting me into your world, and if I could do anything for you in return, let me know.
Well, you've been fantastic tonight.
Thank you, Randall.
Hang on after we close up. Ron, any parting thoughts tonight?
Yeah, I just want to thank Randall for coming on and wish you all the luck and success in the business. I know you're going to do well.
Appreciate that.
Yes, I echo that 100%. Guys, so thanks so much for a great audience, great questions. You guys have been fantastic. You have any questions directly for Randall? He's already told you his email address. I'll make sure that it's in the description so you guys can have access to him. Question of the day: what did you think of Anzu Robotics Q&A with CEO Randall Warnas? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, it's a great day to fly.